Here we go. Let's got Brendan Whitted from let's see, Swarm and Sting.
Yep.
Right? You're the guy behind Swarm and Sting. So let's start with
am.
swarming and stinging, if you will. It's part of Fansided, but Brendan is legit. So let's talk about LaMelo Ball and the latest injury. Man, this has been a tough year for the Ball brothers. I'm not sure that LiAngelo isn't going to play more NBA games than the other two combined, and he's nowhere close to playing in the NBA. How many games has LaMelo played this year? Lonzo hasn't played at all, I don't believe.
I don't think Lonzo played at all, and it sounds kind of really bad. Like the more you start to kind of research a little bit more about Lonzo, because he was supposed to be back in January, and he's just way behind schedule. And it seems like there's been a lot of reporting about this being a more peculiar sort of injury than people are accustomed to. This isn't like your normal kind of lower body. I think it's a knee injury. Kind of injury that you see. So I'm really hoping that we see him again, because him being hurt really sunk the Bulls. But I think LaMelo played something like 35 games or something, somewhere around there. He missed a lot of time this year, and he missed the early part of the season, which is maybe the only kind of saving grace, because he was hurt early on, and it was pretty much, and Rozier was hurt as well. Gordon Hayward missed time. Like, all their injuries were stacked in the beginning of the season for the Hornets, and it worked out better because they didn't really need to try to tank officially. It was like, hey, we just don't have the talent to roll out there.
Right.
Because Steve Clifford was never going to be that. He got hired. Keep in mind when Clifford got hired. Clifford got hired at the end of June, right before Miles Bridges got arrested. And this was supposed to be a team that he got hired to get this team over the hump and get them into the playoffs. No play-in. Get them to the playoffs. He gets hired 3 days later. Bridges gets arrested, so he ends up not playing this season. LaMelo was hurt, and the boat of injuries. So it's been a really rough season overall for the whole squad.
All right, let me ask you about the immediate future, not this year, but the near future for the Charlotte Hornets. And Brendan Whitted is joining us here at HU Cosell on Twitter. So LaMelo's had a tough year, obviously, with injury. Yep. Bridges has had no season for obvious reasons. Although, with the charges going away, do we think that the Hornets are going to ultimately bring him back and put him on the court next season if there are no charges? Not that what he did is, even if there are no charges, he obviously, did some heinous things. So what are we looking at for the future of those players?
Yeah, well, for clarification, he pleaded no contest to one count of domestic assault. Okay. He's got to serve, and this doesn't necessarily have to be away from the NBA, but part of the plea that he agreed to was 52 weeks of anger management counseling, 52 weeks of parental counseling, and then there's some community service involved as well. Charlotte's been really hush about any sort of a future with him. He's a restricted free agent, so they still hold his rights, but they haven't said anything. The only public statement that they've given so far was when he was immediately arrested to essentially say, hey, we know that he's been arrested. We're monitoring the situation. It's an ongoing investigation. We're not going to comment on it. And that's it.
Right.
Now, Bridges, I believe, at the Michigan State-Indiana game, maybe at halftime, I believe, he said he felt like he might be able to play again in March. Mm-hmm. Again, Charlotte has never said any of these things. That is the only kind of public conversation that from one of the two parties that we've seen. I don't know what the future is, to be completely honest with you. Whenever something this serious happens away from the court, it always feels very empty to talk about, oh, this is how many games he needs to miss or something like that, because we're talking about a violent action that occurred. And it always feels hollow, but at the end of the day, if the criminal justice system has played itself out, all the NBA can do is say, hey, you're going to be suspended. All Charlotte can do is say, hey, we're going to release your rights. It can't. That's the only thing that the National Basketball Association can do. Personally, I would like to see him complete the counseling before he got back into the NBA. Mm-hmm. And I also don't necessarily know if he needs to go back to Charlotte. I'm just talking about like purely from like I think what might be in his best interest is to play somewhere else. to be at another franchise. And if you want to talk about this, some sort of next steps for him, from a purely basketball point of view, that hurts Charlotte a lot. This is a guy that was coming off a career high in points, rebounds, assists were up. He was getting to the free throw line in large part because he just improved his handle so much. So you saw the dunks, you saw the athleticism, and you saw his 3-point percentage improve. But then once he worked on the handle, he was able to get to the bucket, get to the line, and become a more consistent scorer. So he started to show some of those traits. So him turning that money down at the beginning of that season made sense. He was going to make a ton of money.
Right.
Now, I don't know what the market is going to be for him, but I honestly think that it would probably be in his best interest if they parted ways.
All right. So what happens with LaMelo? Or when LaMelo first got here, we saw, oh my gosh, future star. Mm-hmm. We see a guy who has clearly got a lot of talent and is fun to watch, and he plays with flair. But is that all it is? Is it a little bit too much to borrow from Al McGuire, one of the all-time, who's a great coach but also a great broadcaster? Is there too much French pastry, right, with LaMelo Ball's game and not enough meat and potatoes?
No. Disagree.
Okay.
Hard body disagree. Anybody that tells you differently, I feel like it's just not watching this guy on a regular basis. Keep in mind, before last night's loss to the Suns, they were on a 5-game winning streak in large part because LaMelo was healthy again, and they finally had enough guys to throw out there where you're not just putting together these terrible lineups. They went on a 5-game win streak for a reason. I know it's a small sample size and everything like that, but outside of really P.J. Washington and Cody Martin, who hasn't played really all year, he hasn't played since January. That team was whole. They finally got Kelly Oubre back, and this team has started to win again. And so keep this stuff in mind too. LaMelo is averaging, I know it's a smaller bit of fewer games. LaMelo's averaging career high in assists. He's taking, listen to this, he's taking over 10 and a half 3-pointers per game and making 37%.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, that's good.
And he is a dynamic player. And if you're looking for the future, like enjoyment, if you're looking for something to be excited about, if you're a Hornets fan, not just the draft, Mark Williams. Mark Williams has been really, really good. He's only started about 7 or 8 games since the Plumlee trade, but he's been exceptional. His 3rd straight game last night with the double-double. And the stuff he's going to be able to do on the pick and roll now is going to be really, really special. Plumlee was a good passer, not a good finisher. Williams looks like he's going to be a legitimate finisher. Hit 2 kind of pick and pop jumpers off a pick and roll last night versus the Suns, like feathery jumpers. You see the touch. Again, this is a guy that's going to work hand in hand with LaMelo because LaMelo is 6th in terms of pick and roll possessions per game this year. I know, again, fewer games, but that was a heavy part of their offense. Putting him alongside of a guy like Mark Williams is really, really going to help, to say nothing of the defensive presence that he's going to give you as soon as he kind of finds his way. He's already had a 4 or 5 block game. Like they finally got it right at the center position.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you to that, Brendan, about Mark Williams, and I know that has to hurt because I know he went to Duke. All right, so although they got rid of a Dookie first before they put